Hello. Good morning, everyone. And thank you very much for joining in for today's session. We'll start the webinar. Actually, it's 11 o'clock, and then thanks for joining in your midst of your busy schedule. So in today's session, we will be talking about enterprise analytics using the Power BI and then the Microsoft Azure technologies. Right? So to give you an introduction about myself, my name is Ranjith Singh. I'm working as a practice lead for Microsoft Solutions and Synapse technology. Been working with the organization for the past 15 years, and then during my tenure that I handled different portfolios. So right now I'm helping customers to digitally transform their business and then their data. So this is the focus of my department and then myself. To give an introduction about Synapse, and we are the trusted partners for our customers for their IT needs. And then we are one of the leading system integrators helping customers to meet their end-to-end IT needs, right? So as I have informed before, so we will start looking into the webinar. We will get into the webinar. That we will kind of a deep dive into what are the technologies that is available in the Microsoft portfolio that will help customers to analyze their data. So during this the entire presentation, the webinar has been recorded, and then it will be available in our website under the events and webinars section. So which you can just later, if you wanted to have it for your references, if you would like to share with your colleagues, your managers, you can feel free to do so. So you can just reach out there and then find a recording of our webinar. Fine. So during the session, if you have any questions, or if there is any suggestions, you can put into the chat window or Q&A window. So I have my colleagues Rehan and then Shania available for you to answer it, whatever the question that is possible to answer. And then if there is anything that requires detailed explanation, we can have a one-to-one chat, or probably we'll see that during the Q&A session, we'll be able to cover that up, right? So in the sense of time, so we'll just start the webinar now, and you can leave your questions in the Q&A box. Hope I'm audible. Thank you. All right. So, so the subject that what we are going to discuss right now, it's a very vast subject, right? So I'm not sure that how much I will be able to go in detail, and it's kind of a more of a technical session. So I will try to balance between the technical and the business, and then I would like to focus more on the business benefits that that what we can bring out. Take out as a, by end of this meeting. So in this session, so I'll be the one who will be walking through end to end. So in this session, the agenda will be starting with the traditional business intelligence and what we have been using so far, and then what are the limitations that is attached to the traditional business intelligence platforms. And then small introduction about Azure Relational Database Management Platform. So what are the tools and the technologies that is available as part of Azure Data Platform. And then a little bit detailed walkthrough about the modern data warehouse and then the tools and solutions that is available. And finally, based on the time and the availability, and I have two case studies that I would like to discuss with you, that how our customers benefited using the Microsoft technologies and then solutions. They have migrated from their legacy of traditional business intelligence to the Microsoft Cloud. And what was the problem statement? And we'll discuss in details. I have two, then I'll just try to cover it up and as much as possible. Otherwise, I'll just make sure that we cover at least one, right? Okay. So I would like to start from the business intelligence. And I have a mixed crowd here, and then there are, I can see that based on the registration, I see there are a couple of technical people, and then also the business, and then from the IT business front. So we have a couple of mixed crowd. So I'll just try to cover it up, starting from the what is business intelligence, and then this is all aware, so we know what is BI. It is a little bit delivering relevant information to the right people at the right time, and then of course it helps the business, helping business to make the decision making faster, right? So it gives the right information at the right time, and so that will definitely help the business or the C-level executives to take the decision to take the business to the right direction. So It's very simple. The process is it collects the data from the multiple sources. So we will just dive little deep in the next slides. What I talk about, collecting data from the different sources. So obviously, I mean, from your different ERP systems and then CRM solutions, or any applications after that you're running to meet your business needs. It collects all the data that is standing in silo and it converts them to the meaningful information and present it to the management for the right decision making, right? So if you look at the fields where it will be helpful, and then obviously performance management and the analytics and predictive modeling and data and text mining and then more. So there are plenty of applications of this right here. Yeah, fine. Yeah. So let me know, please leave comments in the chat session if you're not able to hear me out. Yeah. So what is the traditional BI? So as I said, that we have plenty of source systems that is available, right? So every business cannot be run or depend on one particular application. So we will have plenty of applications. If you take an example, as a 7C center, we are using almost 14 to 15 applications to meet our business needs. So obviously, when there are 15 applications, there are different sources of data, right? So it can be from SQL or SAS model or SAP, etc. So then all this data has to be extracted and transformed and then loaded into the data warehousing. So we call it as a massive data warehousing. So data warehousing is nothing but where you consolidate your data. So that is coming from the different sources. And then ETL process that I'm talking about, it is not in some cases it's a straightforward load, but in most of the times, the transformation takes a lot of time. And then, of course, the loading takes a lot of time. So all the data is collected and then loaded into the massive data warehousing and semantic, and then further it will be processed in the semantic layer and then advanced analytics. And then finally, it is presented in the static report and then dashboards and then ad hoc reports. So this is the way that, the traditional business intelligence works so far. So if you ask me, so when did it start? In the late 1980s, if I'm not wrong. So the traditional way of managing the data and so on. So is it actually addressing the current business needs? So that is something that we'll have to think about. So the technology that has evolved, and then of course there is a lot of improvements after that, but it has got its own limitations, right? So the amount of data that we get or the business generates every day, it's quite a sum. So we need kind of a modern technology in order to address all this business and all the data that is coming in, right? So I would like to discuss a couple of limitations on the traditional BI, and then whatever this enterprise requirements that comes up, and then how it has been addressed. And I just wanted to give you the background of so what is the need of modern data warehousing. Okay. So if you look at the issues with the traditional data warehouse, so one of the main issues, it doesn't scale well in terms of storage, volume, velocity, and variety. Right? So you can probably plan your data storage or the hardware requirements and then the data variety for the next 5 years, but then you cannot force it beyond that. So this is one of the major disadvantages of traditional business intelligence, right? So if I can highlight you one thing here when I talk about the variety of data. So I would say 10 years before, so we only have the structured information, so the data that is stored in rows and columns in SQL database or Oracle database or a Sybase database for that instance, and then PostgreSQL, and then we can give a lot of references. But what happens, it's all structured information. So the traditional data warehouse that is built in On-Premise right now, or probably at least during this stage, is capable of processing the structured information. It has the unstructured capability as well, but then when we talk about handling it and then dynamically scale it up, so there's all the concerns with the limited and the traditional databases, right? And then it also only holds the batch loaded data. So there is two ways that we can load the data that we probably look into detail in the next sessions. So then it only supports the batch loaded data and the limited analytics capabilities. And it also, every time that we need to take a data that we have to write, and then we need a schema in every stage of process, right? So then it has got its own complexities attached to it. So even if it is on-premises, then of course, we need to invest heavily on the capital investment, the CapEx investment will be very high. So in terms of that, you invest on in terms of licenses, in terms of hardware infrastructure that is required, the business to perform the business intelligence will be always on the higher side. So the next challenge will be the product upgrades and then the migrations, right? So whenever there is an upgrade comes to ensure that we get the advantage of the capabilities, the newer capabilities of the solution, then you obviously have to upgrade. So when you update the software, then you also have to upgrade the infrastructure as well. So then comes the high availability and disaster recovery. So once you implement the BI full-fledged, your business will be highly dependent on it, right? So your business decision makers and your business decisions will be based on the reports or the dashboards that you provide. Fine. So having said that, so if there is no high availability and then disaster recovery capabilities that is available on-premise, then that will become the bottleneck for your organization. So this is another, of course, it's not that we can't do it, but if we implement the high availability and disaster recovery, obviously the associated costs and then the maintenance of it will go really high, right? And then another bottleneck that I can see is that if you're based on the organization size and then the number of users, so if they start fetching information or accessing these reports, there'll be a bottleneck in terms of slowness, right? So you need to fire up a couple of other servers as well, and a couple of servers to balance the load. So that is another concern here. So the more the requirement comes in, the more you put the additional investment on the hardware. So it will be always, hitting your budget heavily, right? So apart from this, so based on the recent, study that the enterprise requirements are always high. So it always, you have to concern about the security and then privacy of the data, then the governance, and then how you compliance about, how you're managing the data, availability and recovery, the performance and scalability, as I said, and then the skills and training, right? So your traditional data warehousing require a very specific skills, and then that requires very effective. The training, you need to train your resources at all the times. So whenever if there is the resource leaving, then obviously for the new resource to come in and then to come into the rhythm, it will take a lot of time. And then the licensing is another concern, and the observation and monitoring of the observation and the monitoring of the performance of the data warehousing will be always concerned, right? So let me just try to bring my mic closer so that you will be audible. So hope it is better right now. All right, thanks, thank you. So sorry for the disturbance. So these are the traditional challenges that we face, limitations I would call, that we face with the traditional data warehousing solution. Right, thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Fine. So now I would like to introduce about the 7-6 technology, and then what is that we do and what is we are capable of, or how we can help your organization throughout the journey, throughout your data journey, and what is the framework that we have. So we depend on highly the 6 set of stages in which that we will walk our customers through, right? So we start with the data audit and roadmap, right? See, I'm not talking about here about a simple static reporting or that Excel report that we have generated, or probably your finance team or the procurement team is using to analyze the data, right? So I'm talking about something in the big here, like extracting data, and then what is the business outcome, and then the decision. Your senior executives can take a decision based on the data that is being shown on the business intelligence. So any BI project, for that matter, or any analytics project that we implement in our customer base. So most of the time that will go in the data preparation stage, right? So in order to present the right information, or in order to present information that is useful for the business, so we need to have a supporting data associated with it, right? So we need data that is matching the requirements, and then gives us that insights in order to help us with the predictions, or probably what to do the what if analysis. Then we can talk about a lot of things. So the data preparation is a key, and then most of our time will be dedicated in the data preparation. So where we are super strong in it, right? So we always do the reverse engineering, we call it. So we usually sit with our business team or the customer business team, and then understand that what is the use cases that they are talking about, what is the business goal at the end of the day, what is that they wanted to do with the project or the data that is being generated. Then we do the reverse engineering. So we start with the data audit and roadmap, right? So we analyze their data. So whether the data that they have or that has been given to us is sufficient enough for us to provide that information or the analysis, right? So then we start, as we speak, that we understand your data structure, and we perform certain audit of the data and then understand your data landscape. So what are the source systems or supportive system that is required, the data? Say, for example, if I take an example of the inventory optimization as an example for you, like say there is a demand and then there is a forecast. So with the data of your inventory availability, and then based on the order processing information, I won't be able to, or any data scientist or data engineer will not be able to tell you. So you need to have this many number of items. So we also need the supply information, the supplier information, their lead time, and what is the the waiting time that is available or that is agreed with the vendor, or different vendors if you agreed with the different contracts and so on. So we need all this information. So I'm just trying to minimize the example as possible in the essence of time, because we have a lot to cover. So we understand the data landscape and the data structure, and then in detail to which, so the information will be beneficial for the organization. So that is what we cover in the understand data landscape, and then we do the gap analysis, and then we will submit the roadmap finalization. So we need these additional information in order to perform that report, right? So we have worked with many government organizations here as well. So we integrate data in a different ways, and then all that stuff. So due to the NDA, I won't be able to explain you what we have done, because one of the use cases that we have asked, so we will have to connect to the different entities to fetch the data, right? So that took us nearly 2 to 3 months of time. So the data preparation is a very key in any BA project. So then comes the data collection. So I'll just go a little faster. So we almost crossed 20 minutes here. So the data collection part, so we identify the data sources, and then we classify it, how secure it is, and then we classify the information, and then based on which we will the data security implementations and then everything we'll do. And we collect the data, and then goes the data transformation. So the transformation is very important. The raw data is a meaningless data, so that it will not be analyzed further. So we will apply the transformation, the quality check, and then all that stuff. So then we make sure that the data is transformed enough for us to analyze. Then we build the business intelligence on top of it. So we provide the reports. And then one more important thing that what I would like to emphasize in this particular webinar is, so it is not that, the static report, like we would like to eliminate dependency of the IT staff for creating the report. So what if we give the control to the business users and allow them to visualize the data the way that we want it. And that is the agenda of this webinar. And then there are solutions, the Microsoft products, that will make it possible, and to share the semantic model to expose the model of the database to your end users. At the same time, you can maintain the security as well, and then give the power to the end users, and the IT or the development team can more focus on building the model rather than the building the reports. Right? So that's one of the agendas of this particular session. So we build the business intelligence, that part is covered, and then go for the advanced analytics. So we don't stop you there. So the business intelligence, some or other way, every customers of mine will have some dashboards, and then we'll have some reports, right? So there is no organization running right now without any BA reports or any static reports. For some analytics they will do, but we take our customers further, and then from the business intelligence, we will graduate you to the advanced analytics. you start predicting your business and then start predicting what will happen in your sales. Yeah. So what will happen tomorrow? So what, see, like, if your sales forecast is showing a little less, or probably like, the downhill, then what you have to do in order to take the sales back to the growth path. So we start giving you the recommendations, and then we'll start telling you that, okay, why don't you do this XYZ in order to take your sale, the sales more. And if you are online business, and then how to detect the fraudulent activity. So these are the examples of the advanced analytics. We call it as a machine learning, and then artificial intelligence and the machine learning based predictive model building. So for the business intelligence is the platform to do this, in order to reach you there with the advanced analytics. And then we have the capability to take you to this level as well. Yeah. Fine. Then finally, we also ensure that the data sharing that I think I talked about. So this is our end-to-end data analytics framework. And now I'll just walk you all through the technology that I would like to introduce you to the map. So how do we achieve all this information, and then how do we modernize our existing data warehouse or business intelligence solution that you have? Okay, let's just take a little moment, and then for probably two minutes to explain the Azure Relational Database Platform here. So I believe that I don't need to give you an introduction about Azure. Azure is over, as we speak, over 54 regions, and then it's available in UAE North as UAE as well, right? And then it has got the multiple layer, the storage layer, the compute layer. It's one of the advanced cloud solutions that is available in the market. Okay, as we speak, so Azure has got all the the relational platform when it comes with the open source model and also the SQL database. So if you note it down here, the Synapse Analytics, that is part of the relational database platform available here. So in this family, Synapse Analytics is part of the relational database platform, so that can be analyzed and then accessed using the Power BI, App Services, and Data Factory, and so on. Fine. So in the modern data warehousing, I would like to talk about how are we. So I believe that you remember, or you have seen that how the traditional BI that we have built, and I would like to compare those solutions with the modern data warehousing here, and then I'll take it forward from here. Fine. So we call it as 4 different stages basically. So if you look at it, it starts from the ingesting the data, right? Data orchestration and then monitoring. So what will happen? So when you migrate from your on-premise data warehouse into the Azure cloud, so how are we going to do it? There are 4 stages to it. So the data ingestion will be taken care by Azure Data Factory. So we call in the on-premise technology that we use SQL Server Integration Services to perform this particular task. But on the cloud, so we use Azure Data Factory to ingest the data. And the more important thing that what you have to look into it is on the left-hand side. So we have the traditional line of business applications here listed down. So when I talk about the line of business application, it can be your ERP, CRM, etc., and so on. And then we also have the graph data. And then we have the image data. And then your social media feeding. And then your IoT devices and other cloud resources. So these are the challenges that we usually face when we implement anything on the on-premise. So how do we, take the data, the image data, and then process it, do some deep learning analytics on top of it? So how do we do it? So this will become a challenge. It is not undoable. It's not something that we can't do it on-premise. I'm not claiming that we can't do it on-premise, but then it will be always a challenging task. So what is that if you have an audio file that you would like to analyze the audio files and then video files for your further analysis? Imagine a PDF files that you will have to extract some content out of the PDF. You want to do the big data processing. So everything can be done on-premise, but at the same time, it comes with associated cost. So these are the major advantages when you move to the modern data warehousing, and then you choose a solution like Azure. So you have got everything built in there, and then this is what I used to tell to my customers as well. So you don't need to be a master in everything to build these solutions. Of course, that you need a little bit of guidance, but then this is kind of a drag and drop options that you can build on the cloud, on the fly, to to extract this data in a much simpler way. Fine. So when it comes to the ingestion, so I would like to reiterate, you can, irrespective of the data sources, you'll be able to extract all this information and then store this information in a big data store. So we always prefer to store the data in Azure Data Lake storage, right? So it is much faster, and then it holds all the relational and then structured and unstructured information as well. The storage is something that you wouldn't need to be worried about on the cloud. So, and everywhere the scaling in and out applies. So you would like to want to add more storage, and you can do it on the fly. So probably within 5 minutes time, so that whatever that you have expanded, it'll be available right for you there. And then data preparation, it has got plenty of option for you to do the data preparation, right? So it starts from the data bricks. If you really prepare your data for any advanced modeling, you can use the data bricks, HG Insights, and so on. Then Polybase and for your the big data transformations. So once you finish your data transformation, then you can load your data to the Azure SQL data warehouse, right? So the data warehouse that what we are talking about on-premise. So I'll just walk you through in detail in the next slides. So what is the SQL data warehousing is all about? And comes the applies the analysis services plays a major role, and then based on your requirement, basically, say if your data is not heavy, then we can choose which data warehouse, that solution, that our data platform solution that you will have to use it on the cloud. So that is something that we can always give, right? So we prepare your data, we build models, we build semantic models on the fly on the cloud, Azure cloud, and then finally that can be visualized in Power BI. We prefer Power BI because it works very, very well with the Microsoft solution, our existing Microsoft products, and it can be viewed click view, Tableau, or any visualization tool for that matter, even in Excel. Most of the finance users, the business users will agree with me that the way they are comfortable with Excel, they are not comfortable with any other solution. So feel free to use your visualization source, but then we prefer to use the Power BI. So if you have any questions, again, please leave your message, leave your questions on the chat window, then I'll be able to address it at the end of the session. So we'll have at least 5 minutes, make sure that 5 minutes is available for us to have the Q&A session, right? So this is the high-level architecture any modern data warehousing solution will have, right? So if you look at the streaming data, so we have done consultation to one of our customers where there are a lot of data that comes and that streams and in every seconds, and then the traditional way they were storing the data was always a challenge. So I can't tell you the name of the organization since the NDA. So they were, to give you a high-level understanding, so they were using a SQL database. The database size was growing enormously, like terabytes of data. So the last time when I was discussed with them and we have consulted with them, it was almost 12 terabytes data. So from their the vehicles and then their IoT devices, so every second or every 30 seconds, the one record will be pushed in, and that needs to be collected and stored and then processed for the further analysis, right? So when we migrate them to the cloud, so we have introduced the Azure Event Hub, and along with the Kafka to process the queuing system, and then finally store that on the fly as and when it comes. So let me explain what is the streaming data and the batch data. The batch data is something that you store it on a timely basis, like you extract, you schedule a job that extract information from your any source system for that matter on the batch process, and probably scheduled once in an hour. Then that will be extracted and then transformed and then loaded into your analysis databases for the further analysis. Streaming is something that you don't have any schedule as such. So as and when that information comes in, and then that needs to be return into the database and then take into the further analysis processes, right? So all the streaming job can be addressed using the Azure Event Hub and then IoT Hub or Kafka. And the batch data that can be processed or extracted using Azure Data Factory and stored it in the Azure Data Lake storage, and then further transformed or cleaning or preparation can be done in the Azure Databricks, and then load it in the Azure SQL Data Warehouse, and then further pushed to Azure Analysis Services, and then can be visualized in the Power BI. So this is the main area, one of the main areas that I wanted to cover in this particular session. So Azure Machine Learning and Kubernetes services, we would like to cover that in the next webinar within probably a couple of months' time that we have planned it for the phase 2 of this webinar. But then in this webinar, we will be focusing only on the batch data, and we will be focusing. I will give you a little more insights on the Azure SQL data warehousing and then analysis services and how this works and then how it makes your life much more easier. And it all future perspective, right? And then how we can make this investment in the future perspective. So it considers that whenever your requirement changes, so the system will be able to handle that the requirement, right? Fine. Okay, let me just quickly go through this. What are the patterns basically, right, for the ingestions? And we use different tools for the different requirements, but then in common, we use Azure Data Factory for the data ingestion purposes, and then we use Azure Data Lake Storage or Azure SQL database if it is required, and to store that information, and then we transform it using the Azure Databricks, or that some of the transformation will take place in the Synapse itself. And then finally, we load the data into the analytics services, and then that can be further exposed to the end users. Right. So here comes the Synapse Analytics. Okay, it's an integrated data platform for BI and artificial intelligence, and then continuous intelligence. So the continuous intelligence is a very beautiful word, right? So you might have heard me saying, let me just open up everything so that we can. I will cover it up. You heard me talking about Azure SQL data warehousing, right? So Azure SQL data warehousing was focused only on SQL-based data warehousing, right? So that was actually, I think it's 2-3 years before, I'm not sure. Synapse, Microsoft has introduced Azure Synapse Analytics. I believe I'm not wrong, 2 years before. So that is advanced version of Azure SQL data warehousing. So there's no more the workload called Azure SQL data warehousing, the Azure portal, wherein that has been renamed as Synapse Analytics, right? So Synapse Analytics is a wonderful platform that will meet all your data requirements, right? So it is not only SQL data warehousing that processes the structured data. So if you'd like to process the unstructured data, Synapse can do it. And the languages in which that your developers are comfortable with, or you're comfortable with personally. I mean, I have some technical guys as well here. So you can use the language that you're familiar with. So if you're familiar with Python, you can analyze your data using Python. If you're familiar with .NET, you can do so. And then also R and Scala. Java is supported, right? Fine. So let me start from the basic, like from the experience perspective. So Synapse Analytics, all the studio, the data that can be built using the Synapse Analytics Studio. Again, it's a web-based solution within the Azure portal. So where it will help you to build or explore the data that is already available. So why do I need to go for the Synapse Analytics? Because it is capable of handling millions and millions of data. So based on the volume of your data, so it never slows down. So if you wanted to run some analysis on your billions of records, and it will never slow down. So you'll be able to explore the data, or you will be able to process your calculations on the fly, so without any delay. And that is the huge advantage of Azure Synapse Analytics. So I'm just going a little fast because like time conservation. And as I said, if you have any questions, please leave your messages in the Q&A session. Right. So from the data integration part, I believe that I talked about ETL process, right? Extract, transformation, and then load. So sorry, transform and then load. So that data integration part can be done within Synapse itself. So it's not that Microsoft have retired the data ingestion tool like Azure Data Factory. It's still there, that can be used for the different other purposes. But if you have deployed Synapse Analytics, you don't need to implement separately Azure Data Factory. So the data integration is part of the Synapse, right? And then your analytics runtime is having a SQL and then the Spark. The Spark is mainly used for, just give me a second. Yeah, the Spark is mainly used for your the big data processing, and your Python and Scala and then or a .NET framework can be used on the Spark to process your big data needs, right? but the SQL will be mainly used for your batch and then streaming and then much more interacting processes. Yeah. So why do we need to deploy Synapse Analytics? As I said earlier, to considering your future needs in mind. So you may probably starting up with the simple business intelligence project today, or a data warehousing solution product today. But in future, you will be definitely move yourself to the advanced analytics, such as predictive modeling. You wanted to build some artificial intelligence, the machine learning modeling. So this is the base that you need, right? So as I said earlier, the data is the key, and then the way you store the data, and the detail, and then the volume of data, the data that you store, and that is the key or base for any your advanced analytics purposes. So the Synapse will fit right into the topic that we're discussing, and that will solve or that will meet all your business requirements. So I think that we talked about this. Let me just skip to the next one. These are some key the service capabilities. I will not be probably explaining everything end to end. So wherever that is required, then I'll just explain. So it is, first of all, it is a unified analytics platform. As I said, that the data integrations and exploring, and then data warehousing, all the big data analytics, machine learning tasks. So everything can run from one particular the solution that what we talk about. You don't need to deploy multiple the past solutions within Azure to handle all this, but then deploying Synapse will address all these requirements. It's enterprise grade data warehousing solution. It's a mission critical data warehousing solution, the proving foundation of the industry top performing SQL engine. So we call it as a SQL pools. So you can within this Synapse, you can create multiple SQL pools or multiple SQL data warehousing based on your business needs. So based on the data security and then the isolation level that the business requires. For example, if you really wanted to isolate your payroll information or finance information from your common model, you can actually build a small data mart. We call it anything that is small in nature, we call it a data mart. So you can likewise, you can build a multiple data marts within the one Synapse Analytics the engine, so that you can isolate your information, and then, as I said earlier, so it will be the right solution to address the massive data that you have right now. And then it's a code-free hybrid data integration. So all the ETL and the ELT process. Let me explain what is ETL and then ELT. So extract, transform, load. So the way the traditional way of data integration that we do, we extract data from the source, we transform it on the fly, and then we load it. But this probably cannot be done for your streaming data, right? So if you're receiving millions of records from your devices every second or minute, you won't be able to transform it on the fly. So you can load it somewhere on the database or on the data lake storage, and then transform your data. So after it has been loaded, so that is the difference between ETL and then ELT, right? So it's a code-free environment. So it's a very simple drag and drop. You will be able to create, or you will be able to connect your source systems and then do the transformation and then the load process, right? So it has got the 95 native connectors, and this slide is a little bit old. I'm sure that 95 would have doubled, or at least would have gone high. So this is the advantage, or this is the feature that Microsoft is bringing in right now. So you take any tool for that matter. So it just tries to eliminate the coding part as much as possible. So still, I'm not denying that still you may have to write certain codes if your source system is a bit complex. But that is not, I'm talking about 90% of the time. So the drag and drop will work, right? And it is integrated, and then artificial intelligence and then BI. So it provides end-to-end solution. Probably it's a good starting part for you to get into the advanced analytics models, such as building Azure machine learning and the cognitive services and Power BI. So when I talk about the case studies, I'll just take it in little detail. And it also, it has got multiple options. And then the scaling and scale out, scale down is something. It's the beauty of Azure, a beauty of cloud for that matter. So based on your business needs, you may probably start something with small, and then as the time goes by, and then you can actually increase your performance need or the storage need as per your business requirements, and then you will be built for what you're using. That's another advantages, right? So having said that, I'm done with the Synapse Analytics, and then there's another solution that is available in the Microsoft portfolio, the Azure Analysis Services, and it's a very key solution or module that I talk about in the modern data warehousing that I cannot avoid. So I'll just take you through a little detail and then the advantages of it, and then we will get into the case study, right? So the Azure SQL Analysis Services is nothing but the analysis services that's been shipped with Microsoft for a very, very long time. I mean, I believe that it's first introduced in SQL Server 2008. As we speak right now, we are in SQL Server 2022, I believe. That is the preview version or private preview version that is available, that's been released by Microsoft. So we are talking about like, nearly how many years? 15, 16 years of proven technology that's been taken into the cloud, right? So into the cloud, so there are two different models that is available, the multi-dimensional model and then Tableau model, the on-premise analysis services, but then on the cloud, it supports only the Tableau model. Why Tableau model is something that I will explain. What is Tableau model and what is the advantage of it over the multi-dimensional model. So there is no regret on the multi-dimensional model, but then Tableau model is much faster. I will explain a little later. So then it supports direct query, partitioning, row-level security, and then bi-directional relationship and translations, etc. So I don't want to get into detail in the terms of technical, but I will explain in the further slides each and every support that how that will make business sense. Okay, so there are three different versions available. There's a developer version, basic and standard. So if you really wanted to do something on your development front, so you can take the development tier, and that is very, very less, the virtual processor, probably the processor speed may not be much effective, but then it has got its limitations. Then when it go for the production, there is a basic and standard features available, and obviously there will be different. There are certain features that's not available in the basics, and one of the things, or probably two things that I'm concerned about is the multiple partitions and the direct query storage mode. This is something that I will talk about in a while. So we prefer business to start with something standard, even if they start small, to meet their better businesses. So the key features of the Azure Analysis Services, it's on-demand, scale up and down to meet your business needs. So we are talking about 400 GB of memory. Okay, so let me take some time here and then explain. So what is this 400 GB of memory, and then what is this Tableau model, right? So Azure Analysis Services stores the data on the RAM. Right. So the traditional way of analysis services, the multi-dimensional model works based on the disk, right? So whenever the user requests for any information, so it has to be processed from the disk and then taken that into the random memory and then serve it to the users. So there will be definitely lag between these two. Yeah. So it depends your I/O speed of your disk and then the amount of traffic, the amount of requests that is being coming from your users, and how many number of users are requesting this simultaneously and so on. So the performance depends on various factors. But if the data is available on the memory, then it is nothing like that. So it serves data very fast, right? And second, the data that is stored on the memory is in the compressed mode. So you don't need to worry about like, hey Ranjith, I'm having a 4 terabyte of data. So what am I talking about 400 GB? So it stores in a highly compressed mode. And then the way it stores the data, we call it as a columnar storage. It's not in a traditional way of storing the data in the rows and columns, but then it stores the data in the column. So that is what we call as a semantic model, right? So it's kind of a pre-processed information. So it will not probably need more time like you typically run your SQL queries. So whenever you request for any information, that it will just go on the fetch information within seconds. And so if you ask me to testify this, we talk about nearly 20 billion records. It just came in very few seconds. When the business users started analyzing that information within more time. Yeah, so that is the feature, and then this memory portion can be scaled up and then down based on their requirements, and it just creates a single trusted BI semantic model that can be shared with your the meeting for your business users. And that is this third point. Like you can enable the self-service and data discovery for your business users, right? So you actually don't need to build. So we are removing the IT dependency here. Like gone are those days that the business comes to the IT and then data. Ranjit, I need this column to be added, and I want this information to be added to this report. So gone are those days. We need to give the business the power and the flexibility to build their own dashboards and reports, and that is what it does. It's beautifully, how do we do it? You remember that I talked about the row-level security, right? So the row-level security is something that has been that takes care of this. So you can actually secure your data. So what data can be seen by whom, and what model can be accessed by whom, even within the table or within the same data set. So if Ranjit has an access to only this certain records that matches this particular, say, you may have a different sales department and then different sales managers, those who are responsible for those departments, right? And you can actually secure your data if the sales manager once logins and then exposes information, and then you should be able to see only this particular set of information that are whatever the data that belongs to him. So that's what I'm talking about, the role of security. So doing this, you can confidently expose your semantic model without exposing your underneath data, so that they can use that model and then start building the analysis on their own, and that will bring out a lot of insights, and that will help them to make the business. And then, of course, like, it's the speed of the business. No one wants to wait right now. So they always complain the system is slow. So this is the common complaints that if you are someone joined from the IT, then you would acknowledge it. Like, most of the time, the business comes and say the reports are very slow. This is not coming. It takes 5 minutes time to retrieve. So all these things will will not be applicable anymore if you implement Azure Analysis Services. It just brings your data in no time without even you imagine it. So it doesn't matter that analysis services sits on the cloud and then you sit on the on-premise, and then how this connectivity works. It doesn't matter. So it provides or serves the data in no time, right? And then also it has got additional features like direct query that I talked about. If you really wanted to closely watch certain aspects of your business that you wanted kind of a real-time update. See, there will be a lag when you do the extract transfer, probably like half an hour to 1 hour, 2 hours. So based on the business requirements. But in certain cases that you wanted to analyze it very closely, so that I don't want any lag. So as and when it happens in the transaction database, I want it to be here. So that's what we call as streaming analytics and all that stuff. So you can use the direct query model and that supports, and it still gives you the same performance, but then it will allow you to connect to the core, the direct storage, and then provides you the information, right? And then it gives you the secure access anytime from anywhere, and then you can use it your familiar development environment to go. And then most important stuff, there are last two features are very important: scale out and scale in with replicas, up to 8 replicas. If you have plenty of users, and then definitely you remember that I talked about the load balancing when I talked about the limitations of the traditional BI. So the load balancing is always challenged. When the more requests comes in, and if you are not able to serve within one server, you can bring up to 8 replicas up and running. So that will start serving your the business needs. So that the scale out, scale in. So you can actually set a parameter that whenever there is a more users comes in, then you can automatically scale out the replicas. And most importantly, pass and presume. So though right now it is not automatic, and then it has to be done manually, but this way you can save the cost as if you really want to. If you know for sure, then after 10 a.m. that nobody will be accessing your reports, or they will not explore the data, you can go on and pass it and resume it when we in the next day morning or any time for the time. So this can be automated, but then there is no direct options available using the partial and then with the timer solution that we can do it, the auto pause, the pausing and then resume. But by default, it is not a feature. So it is not an auto pause, auto resume is not available. You will have to do it by manually, but then you can still do it. That option is available. So this is the typical model. On the cloud, if you really go 100% on cloud, so you take your data from SQL data warehouse or SQL database or any other direct data sources for that matter. And then you can use the direct query, and then you can use the cache model as well. And this is the data factory stuff that extracts this information, load it, and get it into the Synapse and analysis services, and then explore your data using the Power BI. So the next, we have the on-premise model as well. So you can keep the Azure analysis services on the cloud, and then you can still keep your databases on premises as well. So if you are using any SQL data warehousing also, you are implemented, and then you feel that it's difficult to move, keep your source systems on premise, and then install the gateway so analysis services can talk to the source system using the gateway, and then then serve your the requirements from the visualization. It can be both cloud-based visualizations or on-premise visualizations as well, right? And yeah, this is the architecture, and then let me skip this because I think I've talked about it, and I would like to move on to the use cases. And it talks about how it connects and so on. Probably that better that I just skip this slide. But nevertheless, I'd like to just summarize using whatever the technology that I talked about, then the case studies in the next few minutes, and then we'll close this meeting. Well, okay, fair enough. So I would like to skip this Power BI part, guys. I believe that everyone is aware of the Power BI, and it's a Microsoft visualization tool, and which gives a flexibility for your end users to build a self-service model. So you remember that I was kept on saying that self-service. So we can allow business users to do this using the self-service. They can explore the data using the Power BI, and the Power BI desktop is free for everyone, so that the semantic model can be connected using the Power BI desktop, and then start exploring. And it has got its own beautiful features. The Power BI, I remember that when I was just closely following Power BI since its inception, and the way we are right now, it's tremendous growth. And so it's the beauty of it. So the Power BI has been updated on a monthly basis, so that there are channels that if you want, then I can probably share it post this session, and where you can just follow it up. There is a YouTube channel, and then there's a blog where they update monthly basis. There are a lot of features are being updated. That is extremely integrated. Very tightly integrated with the Microsoft solutions. So let me skip this stuff, and then because of essence of time, that let me move on to the use case one. So the first use case I would like to talk about how we have migrated or built the modern data warehouse using Synapse and Azure Analysis Services. The problem statement is the customer entity was established in 1995, and they were into multiple industries and the multiple domains and the multiple verticals with the billions and billions of data. So what we talk about is nearly 40 to 50 terabyte of data that's spread across different systems, and every vertical, the business vertical, using a different systems and different databases, and it's available. It was available in the different cloud and on-premise in the different regions. So this is a massive problem. So they would like to, the top management, the senior level, the senior management team would like to consolidate all this information, and they would like to run some analysis, comparative analysis between the same, say, if it is thought as a shipping industry or logistics. So they would like to compare the logistics A and with the logistics B, which is running in the same region in the different location, and then what are the influence factors that is running this business high and stuff. So you probably that I'm able to convey the problem statement that I'm talking about. It's a lot of data. It's a huge data that they have to process and bring out these insights, right? So what we have done, I'll just skip this part, and then I'll move on to the objective. So they would like to have a single source of truth, and from where the data can be exported, and they would like to see that how we can maximize their loyalty to the customer, increasing the revenue, and all that stuff. So this is the data architecture that we have come up with. The data sources that we have limited it due to this. The architecture was huge, so we have taken only one part of it. So what we have done was the source systems where MySQL and then MySQL database and then Oracle databases and so on. So we put the integration runtime in between, and then that extracted the data, and using multiple pipelines, and then that was loaded into the Synapse analytics. You can see the ingestion part and the data warehousing part was everything was covered using Synapse. And the data modeling part, we have used analysis services, rightly said, because the volume of data was so high. So it's been accessed by the senior level executive. So there is no way that we can slow down the reports, or the report has to be whatever the data visualization they need, the report they wanted to see, the data has to be presented immediately. So we have used Power BI as their visualization tool and to solve this business, the business problem. So this is the use case one, and then the use case two is kind of a predictive modeling that we have built using Azure data services, right? So the problem is like the organization is serving the shipping industry, and their order management process is being followed manually. Like they receive the RFP from the customers, and then they process that has to be sourced from the different vendors at the different price, and with the different terms of customers, they will be submitting the RFP and will wait for the order closure. So what we have done is a very interesting problem. If you can follow me, like there is no guarantee, or the business had no visibility whether this RFP will close or not, right? Because and there will be multiple RFP comes in, and there is a challenge also which to choose, and where I have the more probability of winning, or the RFP that I'm going to quote, will it close or not? What is the percentage of the probability of closing? So these are the business challenges, that all these decisions are being taken based on the data that the sales manager sees it or explores it, and then based on his intellectual knowledge or his understanding, he takes a statement. So what we have done, we have completely automated this using the Azure and then Azure machine learning capabilities. Here is where that I talked about the advanced analytics, probably in the next session that I will be able to walk you through in detail. But what we have done was it is more kind of a real-time data that we use. We use kind of a streaming methodology rather than pull. It will push the data to the Azure, and then we use Azure Machine Learning Studio in combination with Azure SQL database and then stuff, and then we run that model and then predict the outcomes or the possibility, and then we'll send it back to the end user. Okay, see, in this RFP, you have probability of winning 80%, 85%, so that they will know in the report all the RFPs they have entered. They know in where the winning percentage is more. Thus, the team is focusing more on those RFPs rather than working on everything. So this increase the revenue drastically, and they have benefited out of it. So all this is possible, or it made it quickly. We were able to implement it quickly. It's because of thanks to Azure, because of its scalability, and then removes the capex model, and the initial investment is taken out of the cost. So that makes the customer life easier, so that it goes on kind of an operational model, and then you can scale up and down as per the need of the business. That made the solution delivery possible. Yeah. So finally, I'm done with my presentation here, and I'm open for the question and answers. So if you have, or if you have any questions, and then we can probably use next 5 minutes to answer this question. Otherwise, if you are willing to get more insights and more details of it, and we can arrange one-to-one meeting with your business team to address your unique business requirement. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. All right. Thank you very much. I would like to close this session with a thank you note, and then thank you very much for your taking your time out and attending the session. Hope it will be useful for your business. And any questions, please feel free to get in touch with us, and we are here to help you out for your BI job. Thank you very much.